Today we're unpacking a short but incredibly powerful story Jesus told. It's a parable that gets right to the heart of what sincerity really means, and it forces us all to ask a tough question. Are we defined by what we say or by what we actually do?
Okay, so to really get this, we have to understand this setting. We're in Jerusalem, and it's Jesus' final week before his crucifixion. The atmosphere is just electric with tension. He's just gone through the temple, flipping over the tables of the money changers, and the source material says his voice echoed with the power of God. So yeah, the religious authorities, they are terrified, and they are definitely not happy.
So, the very next day, the chief priests and elders confront him. You can just feel the hostility in their question, can't you? They're not actually looking for an answer. I mean, they've already seen plenty of miracles. Their real goal here is to set a trap, to get him to say something they can twist and use against him to finally get him put to death.
But Jesus doesn't walk into their trap. He knows exactly what they're trying to do. So instead of defending himself, he completely flips the script. He sidesteps their question and, with the simple story, turns the judgment right back on them.
And that brings us right to the heart of it. The parable of the two sons. It's an absolute masterclass in storytelling with a punch.
So the story starts out really simple. You've got a father with a vineyard that's ready for harvest, and he needs help. He goes to his first son with a pretty straightforward request. It's a clear call to action.
And the son's initial response? It's defiant. A flat-out no. He just refuses. But then, and this is the most important part, something changes. The source says, afterward he repented and went. He had a change of heart, and that led to a change in his actions.
So the father then goes to his second son. He gives him the exact same command, go work today in my vineyard.
Now this son, he says all the right things. His response sounds perfect, right? It's respectful, it's agreeable. I go, sir. But his words were totally empty. He made the promise, but he never followed through. It was all talk and no action.
Okay. This slide just lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you have defiant words followed by repentant action. And on the other, you have agreeable words followed by, well, nothing. This is the central conflict Jesus is setting up for his audience.
And then, Jesus turns to the priests and elders, the very guys who are trying to trap him, and he asks this simple, piercing question. Who actually did what the Father wanted? And the answer is so obvious it's totally inescapable. For just a second, they forget their whole agenda and answer honestly. The first. And boom, this is where the parable lands its punch. Let's break down the symbolism here. The Father, of course, is God. The vineyard represents his work in the world. The first son, the one who said no but then did the work, he represents the tax collectors and prostitutes, the sinners who knew they were wrong but chose to repent. And the second son? Well, he represents the self-righteous religious leaders themselves, the ones who said all the right things but had no real intention of obeying.
With their own answer, they basically convicted themselves. And then Jesus delivers this absolutely stunning rebuke. Can you imagine hearing this? He tells the most respected men in the nation that the outcasts they look down on were actually closer to God's kingdom. Why? Because those sinners had recognized the truth and changed their ways.
So, the big takeaway here is this. The parable lays out what the source calls the test of sincerity. It's not about just saying the right words or professing faith. It's about whether our actions actually line up with what we claim to believe. And this really shows the danger of being like that second son, right? It's a mindset that shows up when we make promises we don't intend to keep or when we only obey if it's easy and doesn't cost us anything. It's what happens when we let our sense of duty fade and start trusting in our own goodness instead of actually doing God's will. And the stakes here are incredibly high. The source material is really clear on this. This isn't just about being a slightly better person. Passive agreement is not enough. A genuine faith, it argues, will always result in action. As the source puts it, we can never be saved in indolence and inactivity. So, if just saying it isn't enough, what does true doing even look like? Well, let's look at the ultimate example of what it means to be an obedient son.
The source points directly to Jesus himself. This verse from the Psalms is presented as describing Christ's own attitude toward his Father. For him, obedience wasn't some reluctant chore or a grudging obligation. It was a delight, something that was literally written on his heart.
You know, from start to finish, Christ's life was the ultimate example of words and actions being in perfect sync.
His whole purpose was to do the will of his Father, and every single thing he did served that purpose. He didn't just say, "I go, sir." He went, and he counted no sacrifice too great to finish the work he came to do. He is the perfect doer.
And all of this leaves us with a final question to think about. That call to go work in the vineyard comes to all of us in different ways. So, when that call comes to you, which son will you be? Will your life be defined by your promises or by your actions? Will you be a sayer or a doer?